Guy for elaborating on India's achievements in energy transition and interconnection. We now welcome Mr. John Crimes to deliver his speech. His expertise in the smart energy sector will surely enrich our understanding.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's fantastic to be here. I'd like to start by congratulating China for their leadership in putting forward this proposal and all of the working group countries that are advancing this discussion. I think it's a very important one, so thank you for the opportunity. What I'd like to do today is just provide some observations about what we're seeing in relation to grid infrastructure in the Australian context. And why do I think that's interesting? It's because Australia is a continent. It's really huge, but it's also a single country. So we're learning a lot about our own internal market as a result of the application of some of the themes that we've heard about this morning. The first thing to note is that the Australian grid is actually mostly along the east coast of Australia, but it's one of the world's longest single grids. It's about 5,300 kilometres from the tip of Queensland to the bottom of Tasmania and across to South Australia. And that has actually served us very, very well with the integration of high levels of renewable energy into the system. So Australia, as a nation today, about 36% of all of our energy comes from renewable energy. And when you have such a geographic spread, then that poses massive opportunities. Because when the wind is still in Queensland, it's blowing in Tasmania. When the cloud cover comes over in central New South Wales, it's actually sunny in South Australia. And so the ability to use the grid as a virtual battery, one of the themes that we heard the speakers talking about today, is a very real one. Some of our jurisdictions, small jurisdictions, are already 100% renewables. Tasmania, Australian Capital Territory, but one of the larger areas is South Australia. And today, South Australia has about 86% renewable energy in that market. There are days in spring and autumn, not only where South Australia is 100% powered by renewable energy, but actually recently we had a new record. South Australia was 100% powered by rooftop solar energy alone. 4 million Australian households have rooftop solar panels. So really interesting trend with the high penetration rates and the very valuable asset that is that grid infrastructure. So those interconnections really important. But of course there are opportunities beyond that. If we connected the East Coast and the West Coast, and let me say it is not connected, but if we did connect it, instead of having a grid going up and down, we would have a grid going from side to side. And so in summertime, when the sun was setting in Perth, it would be 10:30 at night in Sydney. So that time shifting from west to east of solar generation really could be very powerful. And of course, that is an opportunity for the whole world. Now, Australia does have big plans. One of our natural advantages is that we have some of the best solar radiation, the best wind resources in the entire world. We have a huge country and nobody there. So it means that we've got land that you almost can't give away, right? And so we're thinking creatively about how do we harness this and make this energy available to the world. And so we have a project in Australia called the Sun Cable Project. It's being built near Darwin in the Northern Territory of Australia, some of the best solar resource in the entire world. And we're going to connect, so about a 17 to 20 gigawatt solar plant being developed with about 3.2 gigawatts of energy storage and a 4,200 kilometre undersea cable from Darwin to Singapore. Why Singapore? Well, Singapore has a vision to be the green data centre capital of the world. That's their economic plan, their vision for Singapore. So if we can provide that 100% zero emissions energy from sunshine available 24/7. And of course, a data center, constant load, right? 24 hours a day, constant load. If we can do that. So these are the sort of nation building projects that are already under construction in Australia, already being developed in Australia. The second project that I'd like to tell you about is a project happening in the Pilbara, the north of Western Australia. Actually, we have some of the biggest mines in the world, iron ore, other resources going to the world. So there is a project, the Asian Renewable Energy Export Hub. And in that project, 26 gigawatt solar and wind project, 1,600 wind turbines, 73 square kilometres of solar panels, huge. And the energy will be used to power the mining industry in Western Australia. But I also want to introduce a thought to you. Of course, the physical grid is so important. It will be important for the whole world. But also think about the virtual grid. How can we take that energy and embed it? So, for example, instead of selling iron ore dirt, exporting that, why don't we use the world's cheapest and cleanest energy to actually produce iron pellets, in which case the value of the export has gone up. But we're actually exporting not just iron, but Australian sunshine and wind inside that iron pellet, right? The opportunity for value adding is immense. So think about the opportunity for fuels and gases and products with embedded zero carbon technology in them is really the opportunity. So the virtual grid is what I would suggest to you. One other quick footnote before I finish is to talk about the opportunity, of course, the grid, but another speaker, I think, was talking about taking some communities off grid. And this makes a lot of sense. In some applications, this makes a lot of sense. In Australia, we're actually doing it because we have a problem. Huge geography, no people. So you have you might have a swirl line, a distribution line that goes 100 kilometres, 10 people. 50 kilometres, 3 people. Another 100 kilometres, right? It doesn't make any sense, right? So in Australia, our operators are actually cutting the line, and they're putting solar, they're putting a battery, and they're putting a small backup generator for the very unusual weather conditions that happen from time to time. But that generator won't run very often, and so the solution is very robust. As for the telephone network, they leapfrog directly to mobile phone technology. Well, the opportunity is there in the energy sector also to do this. In places that don't have electricity, to have those mini grids and distributed solutions that are much, much cheaper to deliver. So I think that this topic is so interesting, so important, and so multifaceted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. John Grimes, for emphasizing the importance of the smart energy and the transmission in the energy transformation. Now we move on to the panel discussion, moderated by Mr. Reggie Kumar Pillai. We invite all of you to share your ideas and suggestions on topics such as strengthening communication and collaboration among member states, sharing experience, problems, and solutions related to regional grid interconnection, enhancing the brand value of the initiative's webinar, and any other opinions and suggestions. Hi, Mr. Reggie.
Great. So, come to Mr. Grimes. You talked about some new experiment which you are doing in Australia. Could you elaborate a bit more about that?
Yeah, so some of the processing, particularly of value adding for minerals and that sort of thing. But something also occurred to me when I was listening to you speak about this. And the image that I have when I think about Thailand helping Myanmar, right, is the big brother or the big sister helping the little brother or the little sister actually move up quickly by putting that infrastructure in place. And that's a fantastic notion because it's important for development, but it's also important for another reason. I don't know if you've seen the carbon clock. The carbon clock shows how long do we have to go until we breach 1.5 degree limit. So what is the carbon budget for the world until we go past 1.5 degrees? And the carbon clock today says 6 years and 2 days. the whole world will exhaust our carbon budget for the next 80 or 100 years, right, until the carbon starts to come out of the system, then we're in trouble. And so it's not just 1.5, but then we're looking, how do we stay below 2? And we think beyond that. Already the situation is terrible around the world. So the important idea of the big brother, the big sister, helping the little brother and little sister is important. But it's even more important because the big brother or the big sister can decarbonize quickly, can put zero carbon energy into that network and make that available so quickly to the little brother or sister. So I think that's the image that I really have.
Thank you very much. We are out of time. So 30-second last parting thoughts for each one of you.
I think the interconnection still need a lot of collaboration from the all global talents. So we are looking forward to some concrete cooperation with other countries. Thank you.
I wish I'd thought about this before. I think, again, collaboration is key. I think just really hoping that people come speak to me afterwards, and then we can kind of work more together and more closely on a lot of these issues. And I think the next kind of big milestone that we need to be looking to is COP28, and thinking about how can we kind of make the biggest impact and bring help use that as a platform to keep pushing this agenda to go further and faster, because we know we're already too late on a lot of these issues.
Yeah, thank you. Regional cooperation is actually a multi-dimensional process wherein you derive socio-political, economic, technology, all kinds of benefits. You have avoided investment or maybe even deferred investments. Both societies, both countries stand to gain from this cooperation, harness diversity, and of course harness and embrace more and more renewables. So I think this should be pursued at all levels, be it policy, regulatory, operation, economic cooperation, markets, everywhere. I think a lot of cooperation can help through regional cooperation. A lot of benefit can be derived. So this is something that needs to be pursued in right earnest. Thank you.
We only do this if we work together. It's all of us, everybody, everywhere, all at once, doing it again and again and again. This international collaboration is so important.
Thank you very much. This is a topic we could continue for the rest of the day, but unfortunately our time is up. And my parting thoughts are that we continue to build the grid with the specifications and standards of the 20th century. The grid of 21st century is entirely different. I draw the attention of Claudio, leader like you, need to go around the world and get the standards changed. The ambient temperature has gone at least 10 degrees higher in last 50 years. All the codes, standards are still of 1950s. We continue to build a new infrastructure with that need to be changed. De-rating need to be reviewed, the immediate thing. And in other regions where there are forest fires, regions where are too much flood, we should look at going underground, from overhead to underground, and look at reducing the cost of undergrounding, and also all transmission systems, distribution systems, upgrading the temperature tolerance. This is the most important thing. Last 2 years in our programs in India, in ISDF programs, we take this climate proofing the future grid. And the future grid is also a two-way flow of electricity. The one which we operating today is designed, engineered, designed and built for one-way flow of electricity, no more true. So technology companies like Hitachi and your compatriots and also policy makers, grid operators need to look at this specific aspect. Thank you very much.
Due to the time constraint, now we conclude the panel discussion. Finally, let's warmly welcome Mr. JF, Head of Secretary of CEM, to deliver a summary and closing speech.
you very much, and I'll try to be brief, but I do want to take a few minutes just to recognize the value of the discussion we just had and give my thanks both to RGI and to Geico for bringing us here together. I think there's kind of three parts of my thinking here. First, we've kind of discussed how important this is, and we know this has been recognized at the highest political levels. You can look at the work that's happening in the EU. You can look at the work that's happening at ASEAN. You can look at Prime Minister Modi's focus on regional interconnection. So we know this has the background, and being able to convene the experts and start discussing about, okay, great, we know everybody wants this, but how? How do we get down to the nitty-gritty details? That's how we're going to get from the aspiration to the actual action. And this is exactly what the CEM and MI8 work streams are supposed to do, is to basically take that political ambition and turn that into concrete actions that can be implemented. And so definitely got a few good snippets from the discussion. I was especially taken up by the comment about being able to bring the money to the actual projects. And again, this is an area where our work streams can help, because you can bring the money to the projects, but you need to make sure that the regulatory, market, and technology environment is conducive to those projects making commercial sense. And this is exactly what we try to do in the CEM, is we try to bring all the stakeholders together and say, okay, how do we look at every single aspect of the challenge and make sure that all the pieces are there? And then I was a bit taken up by the big sister-brother analogy, because this really also is one of the purpose that we're trying to do. The primary purpose of the CEM is to bring the coalition of the willing and the able to work together and make sure that this is feasible. The secondary purpose is to get as many people to benefit from that work and be able to accelerate the global transition. And so how we've kind of framed that within the CEM Secretariat is we looked at the 3 I's. The first I is insights. And the purpose of the insights is, do we actually know what the problem is? Do we actually fully understand? Do we know all the pieces of the problem so that we can define what are the best way to address the problem? The second I is about impact. Can we actually bring the right people together to address each of those aspects and provide solutions that can be put together and even create coalitions to actually move it forward? And the third is inspire. Once we've developed the solutions, once we've demonstrated, because we were this coalition of willing and able, can we actually then promote those solutions and help others to follow suit? And so again, I was very taken, by all the discussions and how that fits really into the perfect model of the CEM framework. I will encourage all of you to think about the regional interconnection. I think we said we all need to work together. There are multiple CEM work streams and mission innovation missions that actually look into the power sector. So there might also be a good interest to start talking about the different work streams and to say, how do we get the smart grids to make sure to enable interconnection? How do we get the storage to make sure that we can benefit from interconnection? How do we get the solar and wind supply chains to make sure that we work on? And see how, as a community, we not only as a work stream, but as a community, we can make sure that we address all pieces of the puzzle. But with that, again, just want to thank everyone and congratulate you on the way forward. Thank you.